Hi, everybody. Welcome to My Other's Keeper. Today I have Kendra with Hope Restored Canada. And that is an organization that deals with especially women who have been trafficked, usually sex trafficking. And we're going to discuss and debunk and demystify and all of these things about that entire world. Kendra's going to talk about what her organization does. And I'm hoping she'll discuss a little bit of where she wants it to go. So, welcome, Kendra. Thank you for coming, and I appreciate you.
Amazing. No, thank you for having me. This is pretty exciting. So I'm glad that I can be
Excellent.
here and share a little bit about our organization and, what it means to be in this space and supporting some of the most vulnerable people right in our community. So
Yeah, it's just amazing. When people think human trafficking, like you are located in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I live
Mhm.
not terribly far away from that. And people don't usually think of prairies as a large human trafficking hub.
Mhm.
What can you say about that?
Yeah. So I recently joined the organization, so I have some of that same thought.
Hmm.
When I started with Hope, I really had no understanding of the reality that it is right here in Saskatchewan, and it is happening in our province. Um, I did a lot of reading and a lot of research when I started at the organization, and it's very well known that, although Saskatchewan is not a huge hub of individuals that are trafficked, it is definitely the middle of a triangle between the three prairie provinces that basically feeds into our larger centers across Canada. So a lot of people are trafficked through Saskatchewan, coming from the east, moving to the west, and vice versa. And there is individuals that are being trafficked right from here in Saskatchewan and being displaced from their communities.
So human trafficking, now, is that necessarily those who have been moved from one space to another? Or is it people who have been exploited into, say, prostitution or something like that?
Yeah, so human trafficking is, the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of a persons for improper means. So that can look
Hmm.
like forcing someone into the sex trade, abducting them and taking them into the sex trade, or coercing them into human trafficking. So that may look like, grooming or basically pursuing an individual with the intent of bringing them into a situation where they are, able to be human trafficked. So,
Okay. So,
mhm.
so human trafficking then is the moving of a human for the purpose of,
Exploitation.
thank you. That's the word I was
Yeah.
looking for and was not coming to my mind.
Yes.
Thank you. So, we were talking before this. What brought you into your position here as ED at Hope Restored?
Yeah. So I spent a large portion of my life working with foster families and children in care.
Hmm.
And I really felt that there was a need that could be met with me kind of jumping into something new. So
Mm.
when I heard about Hope Restored and the opportunity to come and step into the shoes of being their new ED, I did a lot of reading and a lot of research, and I really wanted to make sure it was important that I found a good space to land in,
Hmm.
and something that I could basically come to and kind of inject all of my experience and all of my work to
Hmm.
propel the organization forward and bring further awareness
Right.
around human trafficking, sexual exploitation, and just the need to support these individuals as they kind of move to the point of going through recovery and stabilization, so they can be, settled back into their communities and be
Absolutely.
successful. So,
Yeah. It's it has to be hard to be in a terrible situation and then be successful re-entering society. I
mhm.
mean, okay, so you've got a bit of a presentation. Let's go with the presentation and
Yeah, of
see what we come
course.
up with questions throughout. Feel free to type your questions into the chat. I will star questions and bring them up as need be, or if it's simply a, hey, this is awesome, I will acknowledge that at the end. But yeah, Kendra, if you wouldn't mind going ahead and doing
Yeah.
your presentation.
Yeah, that sounds great. So obviously our vision and our mission are our guiding principles of, why we do what we do. So our vision is to transform and support the lives of sexually exploited and trafficked women and youth in Saskatchewan. When I started with the organization, it was really appalling to me to learn that the average age of an individual that is being human trafficked or comes into this world is just 13 years old. So I didn't think that that was even a reality that our children should be worrying about, and us as a community should be worrying about. But that's something that is really important. So our mission is to make a measurable impact with those who are sexually exploited and trafficked through education, partnerships, funding, and programs. So a large part of what we do at Hope is centered around our transitional safe house, where individuals that have been human trafficked or sexually exploited are able to come right into our space, and they're able to exit, from an unsafe situation and have a safe space to land in. Our staff are trained on trauma-informed practices and are really, really supportive and empowering to individuals, and just, allowing them to kind of take the time that they need to feel safe. The first part is, that exit and stabilization of just feeling safe. So that may mean just having a warm bed to sleep in, and, a meal, and not having to feel like there's any sort of pressure to do anything. So our safe house allows that opportunity. We have an 8-bed safe house here in Saskatoon that serves the needs of individuals from all across Canada and all across the province. So we are the only transitional home here in Saskatchewan. So we take referrals from out of province and in province. And the duration of a stay of an individual can vary from, anywhere from a couple weeks all the way up to a year. So we allow the individual to really focus on their recovery during this time, and providing them support and supporting them through programming and helping them, stabilize, so then they are able to return to their communities and, meet some of their goals and milestones of re-entering into the community. So I get asked a lot, I guess, what sexual exploitation is. So commercial acts of exploitation include pornography, strip clubs, escorts, massage studios, brothels, prostitution, and sex trafficking. Anything that really involves the selling of sexual services is sexual exploitation. It's really important to know, though, that there is individuals that, they do choose to sell sex where they are benefiting from that. It is not illegal to sell, but it is certainly illegal for individuals to purchase. So there's kind of a difference in some of the things that kind of go on with the criminal code, really removing the barriers and the onus on, the individual that's being coerced maybe to do these things, or is maybe there by choice. So we kind of look at that continuum of exploitation. I think it was one of the really big key tools when I kind of stepped into here, was really understanding the difference, that there is an opportunity for an individual to have a choice to work in the sex trade, where things are consensual and there's an exchange of money. They see it as a valid employment opportunity, or it could be pleasure driven. They may enjoy working in the sex industry. And then kind of on the far side of that pendulum would be coercion. So that's where we see exploitation that happens by a third party. So that could be a pimp, that could be someone that has basically power over an individual, who's forcing them to do that. There's oftentimes threat that is involved with coercion. I'm going to tell the authorities that you're doing this, or I'm going to hurt your family, or I'm going to hurt your children. If you don't do this, I'm going to hurt your animal. So there's a lot of worry when an individual is in that situation of not only
Mm,
worrying about themselves, but keeping everyone around them safe as well.
for sure.
And in most times, that's where we see that non-consensual piece. Individuals are
Mhm.
not wanting to be in that space, um, but they feel that they have no other alternative. So,
Okay.
and then there's, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to reintroduce the few people who have shown up.
Yeah.
This is Kendra from Hope Restored Canada, and we're talking about human trafficking, even in our small little center here in Saskatchewan. What it is, how we get there, and that sort of thing. So continue on, please, Kendra.
Absolutely. So I think this is the most interesting part of the continuum that I see, is circumstance. So being exploited by a situation, not by a person. So when an individual is trying to go about their life and trying to provide for their children or provide for themselves, um, sometimes there's no other means than to enter the life of the sex trade. um, Poverty is a huge factor. Being able to have, employment that you want to have versus what you need to do to meet the needs of yourself and your family. Mental health plays a huge factor, addictions, and in that circumstance really means that, you're choosing to do it, but you're certainly not enjoying being in that space. So I think that was a really good thing for me to understand, is that there is different things that are kind of involved with sexual exploitation and human trafficking, and it all doesn't mean it's the same thing. So yeah. So just some statistics around human trafficking that I found were really interesting when I started reading, was the average profit from an individual who's been trafficked in Canada is $280,000. So it is definitely a lucrative, um, I'm going to call it I don't even really know what to call it. It's just, it's something that someone can really financially benefit from. And there's so many ways to lure people into this world, and then exploit them for their own personal gain.
Well,
Um,
once somebody's in there, they're no longer a person, they're a commodity. So
Absolutely.
it's a lucrative commodity, is how I would
Mhm.
look at it, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of another statistic was that, you would generally think that, maybe it's, newcomers to our province that, would be more vulnerable and susceptible, but 93% of people that are trafficked here in Canada are actually Canadians. So they are individuals who, are Canadian citizens. And like 93% just seems so wild to me. It's such a high
Wow.
number. So,
Yeah.
um,
So it's not that people are being brought in from around the world,
yeah,
it's our local people who are at risk.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and again, you kind of think, you think that, oh, we're bringing people in from other communities or other countries, and then,
Hmm.
putting them to work in the sex trade, but it is, individuals that are right here in our own community.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and out of 100 Canadian women in prostitution, these were some stats that I pulled because I thought it was really interesting for people to know. Out of 100 Canadian women in prostitution, 76% have been raped. 91% have been physically assaulted. 67% have been threatened with a weapon. 67% have been made to act based on action from pornography. 91% of them had pornography made of them. And out of those statistics, 76% of women or individuals that are in prostitution have been diagnosed with PTSD. So it's something that is lifelong. And even, if an individual is able to leave and exit, the long term supports that individual is going to need is very high. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think another area that we know we often get asked, and even in my personal life, my friends say, like, what do I need to be watching out for? what do I need to be aware of? Like, now that I know that this is a problem here, like, what signs should I be watching for? Um, so I think, something that I read through was, individual factors in identifying vulnerability would be so low self-esteem and self-worth in individuals, lack of confidence and security. So if someone is living in a vulnerable situation, they are far more susceptible to being lured into a situation where they could be human trafficked. Problems with family. We had kind of talked earlier about individuals. We really feel empowered to or drawn to people that meet our emotional needs. So, if there is problems in family dynamic and an individual is approached on the internet and, is provided that sense of comfort that, you're so beautiful and you're wonderful and, I'll take care of you, and, you're promised this life of safety and security, it really creates an opportunity for an individual to then be human trafficked. I think one of the pieces that I'm often reminded of is human trafficking isn't just pulling up in a white van and abducting someone from a park.
Right.
I think we all have that misconception, as we see a lot of times in movies. It's glorified of what human trafficking is, and we're not seeing that, right? You don't hear in the news that someone was abducted from a park while they were playing and was lured into human trafficking. It really is something that happens mainly online now. It's something where an individual that is looking to prey on the vulnerabilities of people, they may be talking to 20 different individuals at one time, trying to engage with them to lure them in order to be able to exploit them and make a profit. As I said earlier, $280,000 for one individual is a wild world, and it's really difficult to track these things. It's difficult to prosecute these things. So it's a very complex place to be. So.
Mm-hmm. And somebody's worth will change over time, whether they're, the younger they are, sometimes the more they're worth. The longer they've been in it, the less they're worth, or the more if they're more experienced and willing. Like, it just is. There has to be so much dynamic to it.
Yeah. So some of the other side of the thing is, people will say, like, well, why don't they just ask for help? Why don't they just put their hand up and say, this is happening to me? Obviously, if you're working, you're interacting with individuals that are paying for these services, and why wouldn't they just say, hey, this is happening to me? There's many things that create barriers in order for individuals to ask for help. There's a lack of trust just in the system, right? Who's going to believe me? And I'm the one selling sex, so I could be criminally, persecuted for this as well. Just feelings of shame and embarrassment, right? Thinking like, going back to that, it's not like you've been abducted and pulled into this world. You created this relationship with this individual, and you get there, and then you start working. And sometimes I think that, well, I guess I know that individuals that are trafficked at the time may not even understand what that means, right? To identify that you are being trafficked by someone you feel loves you, it's hard to rationalize that. So, maybe just thinking, well, this is my part of contributing to the household. We need to pay the rent. This is what I need to do. It's my job to do this. So, just being isolated and having no supports. Oftentimes if an individual is lured and moves into that world of being sexually exploited and human trafficked, they likely have very limited supports that they could reach out to help them. The financial situation that they're in, likely an aspect of that has led them to building that trust with someone, to going into the world. So that financial dependence on the individual that is, has that power over them is quite substantial. So just not knowing about available resources to help someone that needs to get out. We often see individuals that come to our program that just said, like, I didn't know that this actually existed, and what a wonderful thing to support us as a collective and a community, and allow us to heal at our own pace. Not saying you can stay here for 30 days and then you need to leave. Really providing that wraparound, intentional, purposeful service to people is really, really important. So
what would the average stay be with your organization?
yeah, so our stays can look anywhere from, that 30-day piece if someone's just needing that safe space to be, to maybe get reconnected with, family supports or things like that. We've had individuals stay all the way up until 12 months. So it really allows them that time to fully heal and maybe get employment and get the supports that they need and connected with different organizations. So it really provides them with that healing that's on their time. Certainly we have people that stay shorter amounts and people that stay longer. And most of the individuals that come into our program, they want to give back at the end of the day to make sure that individuals that are then coming in after them are able to be supported and supported by someone that has lived experience. If you if you're an individual that has no lived experience, it's really difficult for you to understand what someone who's exiting this life looks like. So we really, we approach that mentorship model, and we really promote and encourage the people that are in our house to, become part of that success in whatever way that looks like for them.
Well, for sure, having somebody say, yes, I think you can get out of this, but you've been little Mary Sunshine your whole life, means absolutely nothing to somebody who's been through hell and is still going through it, and they don't see an actual reality. Crystal has a question.
Of course.
How many are trafficked come from childhood abuse?
Yeah, I don't think there would necessarily be a stat on that. But certainly here in Saskatchewan, we do have a very high Indigenous population. And most often, we're seeing a very disproportionate amount of individuals that are human trafficked that are Indigenous. They are very overrepresented in many of our systems. And it would be interesting to see the correlation between, childhood abuse through the facets of, understanding what linkage that has. We did recently do a research project with support from Prairie Action Foundation. It's called Human Trafficking on the Prairies. I would highly recommend that anybody that would like additional information about that to go to our website. And it really talks about, from the lens of a survivor, what they feel led to the breakdown of themselves and the risk that they were put in the position they were put in ultimately being exploited and brought into the world of human trafficking. So it does speak a little bit about the child welfare system and the apprehension rates of individuals that are living, in more remote and rural communities. So I challenge everyone to kind of take a look at that. And, certainly if there was a stat, it would be really good to hear. But it would definitely be presumptive. So
it would be fascinating, actually, because I would assume that somebody who has grown up in a good, typical home would be less vulnerable. Somebody who's been through an abusive home, who already has an exceedingly low self-esteem, predators know what to look for. They know the signs and situations. I had a friend from many, many, many years ago who she describes herself as having been one date away from being a prostitute. She was mentally ill. She did not have a good relationship with her boyfriend. She was from a broken home of an abusive father. Just so many things piled one on top of the other. And she described to me this guy saying to her, like she had done something. I don't remember exactly what it was. It probably doesn't matter. But he said something to the effect of, "Oh, I like my girls to be clean like
Oh,
you."
wow.
And that's like, my girls?
Mm.
Oh, this is bad. And
Yeah.
that was the trigger for her to go, "Oh, I'm never going to be near this guy again."
Yeah.
Like just, yeah,
Yeah.
that.
And I think that, just identifying those vulnerability factors are super important, right? Um,
Mhm.
what we may think is more of a typical household, um, there could be something going along under the surface, right?
You never know
So
what's going on inside a house.
I think definitely, anyone is really vulnerable to being pulled into this world. It's a
Mhm.
scary place to be. The internet is a very, very scary place to be. We have a lot of partnerships with like Saskatoon Police Service and the RCMP, their vice units and things like that. And they just talk about, the capabilities of perpetrators to engage with, young children by phone has just opened a whole new world. So.
Mhm. Awakened by the Looking Glass's reflection has a daughter who, she'll be on my channel in, actually on Tuesday next week.
Okay.
She had so much information regarding trafficking. She gave it to the detectives about her daughter, and they wanted nothing to do with it. What do
Awesome.
you do? How do you deal with that? Like that just, I can't imagine the frustration that my friend here has gone through.
I guess first off, I would just say I'm really sorry. And I'm sorry that that's happened to you. And I'm sorry that the systems didn't respond the way that they needed to.
Hmm.
Certainly, you know, there's so many avenues to continue to advocate for individuals that have been victims of human trafficking. I think our awareness has really heightened in the province. In early May, there was a big campaign that happened that is really bringing to light human trafficking and its existence here in our province. And I think that through ongoing education and outreach and support, we can continue to make this known and bring it into the world so everyone can hear about it. um, I agree.
Yeah, it's
Treating individuals that are trafficked as less is just, it's very
absolutely.
disheartening. These individuals are not their circumstance. Unfortunately, they have been victims to individuals that have exploited them. And our model is certainly not to treat anyone that has been trafficked as anything less. We really stand by the model in our home that this is their home and this is their opportunity to have that safe space. Um, and we're really there just to help provide them with some tools. So
Absolutely. Now, your organization is Hope Restored Canada. Do you have
mhm.
other homes throughout the country, or is this one of a network of places?
Yeah, so it is just independent right to Saskatoon here.
Okay,
Obviously, our vision moving forward is that we feel that these types of resources need to be everywhere. And I think that that
absolutely.
was maybe, when the organization was founded by two women in 2015. They really just wanted to bring awareness to human trafficking and say like it's here. It's right
Hmm.
here in Saskatchewan, even though we don't think that it is. I think
Yeah.
their vision of why they named Hope Restored Canada was probably very intentional. Of this support needs to be everywhere. There is other organizations in other provinces that do offer some of these same supports. Reset in Calgary is a very well established organization that supports individuals who have been human
Hmm.
trafficked and sexually exploited.
Hmm.
I think probably because Alberta has such a high rate of individuals that are human trafficked. Um,
Well,
it's
they have such a, all of Saskatchewan's population fits in Calgary.
Yes.
Like they just have so many more people. You're going
Mhm.
to have that many more
Yeah,
victims.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we talk about, Communities that have more transient workers have a higher number of individuals that are being exploited. And that's because you're bringing people from other communities and displacing them into communities where maybe they're working,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you see higher rates of individuals being trafficked, in places like Fort McMurray and in northern communities where, there's the projects and things going on. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like I said, we're kind of that gateway between some of these bigger centers where a lot of the trafficking does happen.
Absolutely. Awakened also mentions that there's so many signs she's now able to recognize, whereas before nothing clicked because you wouldn't know to look.
Absolutely.
So we probably interrupted somewhere in your presentation there.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if this would naturally take you then to a place of saying, what are some of the signs that we need to look for?
Yeah, of course. So I kind of sat in on a presentation not so long ago, and they really talked about making sure that some of the signs we look for, they have context as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Making sure that we're not jumping to conclusions to think, oh,
Yeah.
this older man is with a younger child checking into a hotel room. This must be human trafficking. Making sure that when we're identifying some of these things, that we're not being more harmful than good. So a lot of things would be, seeing an individual that has an excess of money that they typically didn't have before, having branding on their bodies. Sometimes individuals will tattoo something on them to claim ownership. um, it could look like individuals that have been very withdrawn or withdrew from their networks and their family connections, which wouldn't have been typical. Seeing a drastic change in someone's behavior is definitely a sign. um, and just that sense of being in a very abusive relationship, when you're
Mm-hmm.
interacting with someone who may be a victim of human trafficking, you're going to see that withdrawn behavior, maybe not talking. The other individual that's with them may be talking on behalf of them. Looking for signs of, where are you from, where do you live, not being able to answer any basic questions is a huge red flag. Because if you're in a community and someone asks you, where do you live, and you can't tell them, that's not typical. When an
Not above the age
individual,
of 6.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not having any of your ID is a huge red flag.
Mm-hmm.
Times where individuals are victims of human trafficking, once they kind of connect with the individual that has lured them in, they're stripped of all their identification. So they don't have a driver's license, they don't have a passport. And when you ask an individual, okay, you don't have this, where is it? And they're not able to provide you with that answer, that's likely a warning sign that something maybe isn't right. So,
I was teaching, I am a retired English as a subsequent language teacher.
mhm.
And in one of my classes, we were talking about, I don't even remember we were talking about, but this group of people were twittering and laughing and whatever. And I'm like, okay, so what's funny? Why are we laughing?
Yeah.
And the lady said, "Oh, I was just telling my friends about meeting this lady, this prostitute on the road, and she couldn't speak any English, and
Oh.
she just was like going on and laughing about this." And I'm going, I said, that person is likely been trafficked, and they
Mhm.
can't get away from it. It is not
Yeah.
her choice to be here for that, and she didn't see the problem.
Oh, wow.
How can you not see? Like, granted, these people were not born in Canada
Mhm.
who were, but they were speaking the same language as this woman. It's not like she was laughing at somebody from a different culture, somebody
Mhm.
from her own culture
Yeah.
who had been brought to Canada under false pretenses,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yeah. Well, I think
wow.
that kind of raises some awareness of, not only are individuals being human trafficked for sexual exploitation purposes, but the labor side of things as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Preying on individuals to then be trafficked for labor. is an increasing trend across Canada.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, using all of those same coercive behaviors, enforcing them into doing labor and living in
Hmm.
unideal living conditions, again, with that threat of, well, you're working for me, illegally. If you don't do this for me, I'm going to tell someone. So,
Yeah.
we're seeing that vulnerability just in people in general, not only, like I said, for sexual purposes, but
Right.
for labor pretenses as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, a different friend was working for an employer in Saskatoon, and this employer asked her to look
Hmm.
at the Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program and tell him whether or not he could have people come to the province and work for less than minimum wage and have 18 people living in a house. It's like, dude, you're talking about trafficking, right?
Hmm.
He's like, I'm offering them a good place, and in their home country they wouldn't be getting nearly this. It's like, that's not the point.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah, for sure.
And
Um,
society is becoming desensitized. How could people laugh at something like that? Period. Absolutely. Absolutely.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not okay for sure.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so certainly, I think that just as a community and as a society, just supporting individuals who are now survivors of human trafficking or who are
Hmm.
victims of human trafficking. Um, it's really important to, as a community, to support them in any way that we can. And that might sometimes be just giving people a little bit of grace and really
Yes.
understanding the things that an individual has gone through, and what has led them to where they are, um, and helping empower them to get to a place where they can have a sense of healthiness and happiness, and things like that. And that's certainly what we try to do at Hope, is
Hmm.
to really give people that confidence that they are worthy and that they are valuable,
Yeah.
and that they deserve the life that they want to have, free of coercion and threat and all
Yes.
of those things. So,
Yeah.
um,
It's the freedom. People take freedom for granted. And
mhm,
while we think that we are free, we're in a free society, all of that, so many people aren't.
mhm,
Um, where in your presentation were you that we interrupted? Because I know that all of the information you have there is super important. So
mhm.
please come back to a place where we were at, if you can.
Yeah, I think we were just kind of talking about some of the signs of what it looks like when someone is being sexually exploited. I guess so we can kind of move into that space of, how do you become connected if you are someone
Hmm.
who knows someone who's being exploited, or who has been human trafficked, or who is at risk of being exploited as well. So, we want to certainly help individuals that are at risk just as much as those who have been exploited. So our program, we have individuals that are referred into the program. You can self-refer into our program, and then we do have situations where um, participants have come and gone. So individuals have came to our space, who've started our recovery process, and then they may hit a point where they just feel that they're not ready, or it's not the right timing for them, so they leave our space. Um, they can still remain connected with our outreach team. So our outreach team um, can support individuals with just sitting down and having a cup of coffee. We offer a program that's facilitated at our space here in Saskatoon. It's free for anyone to come, anyone to drop in. Um, and it's just looking at it from a perspective of just, that companionship and that support. It is led by a survivor, and it's really empowering to make sure that that voice is not lost.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're not kind of having that complex of coming in and trying to save individuals, but we're just empowering people is really, really important. So
Mm-hmm.
all of our information, I guess, is housed on our website. You can go to our website, you can call in, and sometimes it takes a number of times before an individual is ready to come to our program. Mentally, they need to be in a space where they want to recover, and they want to work towards those goals. We are a substance-free home, but we certainly acknowledge and we support those individuals who may struggle with their recovery at times, and there may be that relapse or um, you know area and time where they need some additional support. So
Mm-hmm.
we certainly make sure that we're approaching that with a very soft lens, and again, being trauma informed and understanding that people are not just going to come here, recover, and leave out the other side. So
Well, and
recovery is
and
very
recovery is never a straight line, is it? There's
absolutely.
like
Yep.
just it's a meandering trail.
Yeah. So we
Yeah.
have a lot of partnerships with other organizations where our individuals are able to access programming right in the community. Um, they attend many different sessions and drop-in groups, and really just being self-led,
Mm-hmm.
deciding what programming is a right fit for them, and things like that are really important. So
Mm-hmm. Now, we haven't discussed this. Are you a faith-based organization or are you 100% secular? Not the other one. Secular.
yeah, we are
I was
not a
nearly there.
faith-based organization. That's certainly a question that we get a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We are a nonprofit organization who supports those that are in need, and any individual that would like to access our support is certainly welcome to support us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we certainly have individuals that are connected to the faith community that do provide us with a number of services and supports, but we are not a faith-based organization.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I know actually somebody who is on your board of directors. He was the ED of the place where my husband worked or
Okay.
works, I guess. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm familiar with him, and he is
Amazing.
not of the same faith base as my husband and I.
Yeah.
So I know it would not be necessarily a faith-based organization, but there's um, there's a leaning toward treat other people the way you want to be treated kind of thing, right?
Absolutely.
It's
I
yeah.
would say the way that I approach things and the way I see it is we are a community organization, and
Mm-hmm.
our
Mm-hmm.
team that we have that leads our staff that support these individuals, it is made possible by community.
Mm-hmm.
We have various funders and various individuals that really believe in what we do,
Mm-hmm.
and they step up and they help us. Today we had an individual that dropped by. We probably have paper towel for 6 months, and craft dinner, and food, and just the generosity in this world is unbelievable, and the number of people that are just like, what can I do to help you?
Yes,
They don't want to come in and have that savior complex, and
exactly. Yeah.
they don't want to be interacting with the individuals and the people in our home. They just really want to say, how do we support you in supporting them? So I would certainly say it is community is what we are. We are a community-based organization, and
Mm-hmm.
that looks different from every lens.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So again, where were you in your presentation? Like I said, I think you just have so much good information. I don't want to derail too badly.
Yeah, no, I think that I was just kind of talking about how you come to hope.
Right.
Certainly, if you're an organization that wants a presentation from Hope, we can come and do that for you. So I was
Mm-hmm.
really blessed in my first month where I spoke at the Violence and Aggression Symposium at the U of S. So it was really interesting to see all of the different agencies coming forward with, education and information on human trafficking. And just the number of people that help in our community was unbelievable. People coming up and just saying like, wow, we didn't know this existed. Would you be able to come and do a presentation for, our team, so then they know that if there is someone that they've identified as being human trafficked or exploited, that we can refer them to you so they're getting that, specialized and supportive service that they need. So we can come out and do presentations. Certainly education is a big component of this. In order to eradicate this from society, we need to educate people, and we need to shift the culture of making sure that individuals have, their basic needs met. So then there's not going to be this, this flow of people that are vulnerable and susceptible to being human trafficked and sexually exploited. So I think as a community, if there's an opportunity for you to step forward and help and just offer someone a coffee that's on the side of the road, it's super beneficial to just making sure that everyone feels like they are a part of the community. So
that they feel seen, right?
Absolutely.
Like, yeah.
So that's kind of where I was in my presentation. I kind of rambled on a little bit and lost myself a bit, but
that's okay. That's okay. I'm into rambling. Rambling happens.
Yeah.
Yes, I have ADHD. It's a thing.
Yes,
we understand.
Sure.
Yes.
And certainly if anybody just wants general information and they just want to have a conversation, or they have a question that maybe that they don't feel comfortable asking here today, or something that comes up later, don't hesitate to reach out. You can email us on our website, info@hoperestoredcanada.org. You can call our intake line. You can call our main number and just inquire about how you can help, or how we can help you. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that we have not yet asked that you can think of?
I don't think so. I think this is my first presentation, so I'm pretty excited.
You're doing very well.
I was number 52, and this is my number 1, so I'll definitely remember this.
I didn't write your number on top. Yes. Congratulations on being number 52. We're 52. We're 50.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. No, you're doing great. Does anybody in the chat have a question? We've had a couple so far, which is great. And there's about a 35 to 40 second delay from when we hear something to when we see it show up in the chat. So, okay. Oh, all right. And Awakened, I don't know if she wants me to use her name or not. She says, you're doing fantastic. Thank you so much for all that you're doing. I do have a question, though. What do you have as resources for people throughout Canada? Do you have a central resource page or something like that? So if they're not in Saskatchewan, if they're in Alberta, if they're in Ontario, if they're wherever, do you have information on who they should call?
Yeah, so there's a Center to End Human Trafficking is actually a national organization, I think. So they have a lot of resources on their website of, places that you can go for information, and, connections to other organizations that are, I would guess trying to combat and support those that have been, trafficked or exploited. So there's a plethora of resources on the internet. Certainly if there's things that any individual would like to know, we can definitely point you in the right direction. On our website, there is a number of resources on, some books that individuals can just go and read, just to really understand human trafficking and the severity of the issue here in Saskatchewan. And again, I'm gonna do a plug to our Human Trafficking on the Prairies report. It was a game changer for me. When I read that report, I just thought like, wow, would I ever be so blessed to be part of an organization that has really taken this lens and looked at things from a systemic standpoint of not how do we maybe respond to human trafficking, but how we can, prevent it from happening in the future. If we provide people with those basic tools of housing and food security and things like that, how the world would change. So I certainly challenge anybody that wants to learn more to really read it, and just understanding, how basic needs that are not met can help lead, or that helps lead into a situation where someone's more vulnerable. I think something here in Saskatchewan that we really look at is, access to transportation. We're a very spread out
Oh, are we
province.
ever? Yes.
Yeah, from our south borders to our north borders. It's crazy to think how far it is to get somewhere. And in the evolution of public transit being removed,
Yeah.
it's a really difficult landscape to navigate, right? If you're,
Hmm.
living in PA and you're trying to get to La Ronge and you have no access to transportation, we
You
see
need
it all the
a ride, you may
time.
have to pay for it.
Yeah, we see it all the time with individuals that, are then forced to maybe take rides from individuals that they don't know,
Hmm.
and things like that. So again, those kind of increase the risk of individuals, and their vulnerability to being trafficked. So
Hmm.
um, there's many things that we just, again, I think we need to look at those systemic problems and those systemic barriers and really say, like, we want to make sure that we're helping and not hurting. And some of our systems that are in place, although everyone's intent is certainly to help, there is some harm in those things. So, yeah.
What are situations where you would find less than helpful, I guess, institutionally or just systemically or just with attitudes? What would you find there?
So I think for individuals that have been human trafficked, a big barrier is ID. So if you don't have
Mm-hmm.
ID in this province, it's very difficult to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Without ID, you can't access your bank account. Without a bank account, you can't apply for any form of assistance.
Mm-hmm.
You can't apply for a job. If you don't have a bank account to provide to your employer for direct deposit. Um, I think just the
Mm-hmm.
access to ID and the length of time that it takes is really, um, it's staggering, actually, to have to wait 6 months to get a piece of ID, um, is
Yeah.
crazy. And individuals, when they get that piece of ID, just feel that sense of like empowerment. Um,
Yes.
yeah,
And no address, no ID.
absolutely. So, our organization, we make sure that even as people leave our program, if they want to keep our address as their address, then certainly they can do that until they find, a stable place that they can be.
More
Um,
permanent housing for themselves.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
think that is probably one of the biggest barriers, um, when you are leaving that human trafficking life.
Mm-hmm.
You've had your basic needs met and someone's paid for those things, without hope. Some of these
Mm-hmm.
individuals would likely not be in stable housing.
Right.
We provide that safe space for people to be. There's times where they don't have the capacity to pay rent, and that's okay. We don't, rent is not an obligation. Rent is something obviously we rely on, to help with operating, but we look at, the community support that we have, helps offset that. So when people go and make donations to our organization, it really helps with those situations where maybe someone can't pay rent for 3 to 4 months. If we have people that are bringing paper towel and food and, making small cash donations, that really helps, make it so then we can keep our house operating. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Uh, Awakened, her name is Misha. Um,
Okay.
I happen to know her. She's in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And so their IDs are printed immediately. We have our paper ID, and it can
Mhm.
be printed immediately. but our actual government ID is a plastic card with our photograph on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not immediate, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So where somebody could have at least that form of ID, what banks and such are looking for, what governments are looking for, is the actual government ID with the photo, with the license number, with, like, even if it's not a driver's license, it'll have a number on it and
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff.
Yeah. Well,
So,
and
and
you
that
run
does take
into
time.
that like cat and mouse game, right?
Yeah.
I need ID, but I need money to get ID, but I need ID to get my bank account so then I can get money. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine how exhausting it would be trying to navigate the systems that we
Yeah.
have, because they're all so reliant on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I watched the Sanctum. They just did a recent fundraiser here in Saskatoon. I shouldn't say fundraiser because that's not really what it was. They did 36 hours for homelessness here in Saskatoon. So individuals actually replicated or spent 36 hours living on the streets of Saskatoon and
Mm-hmm.
looking at things from the lens point of someone who is unhoused and has lack of access to a lot of these basic things, and um, seeing the lens through their eyes was just very shocking. The conditions, safe housing, not just housing but safe housing, is something that individuals need. So
Yeah.
um, yeah.
With unhoused people, about, I guess, middle of the winter this last year, my husband and I were at a shopping mall in Saskatoon, and my husband sat down and bought supper for an unhoused gentleman, and we're like, okay, is there anywhere you want us to take you tonight? Like, is there a shelter or something? He's like, no, 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 I don't stay in shelters. Those places are nothing but gang hangouts.
Mhm.
So even our shelters aren't safe necessarily for somebody trying to get out of that life, trying to get out of the unhoused community. Just being able to get off the street physically is a real barrier too.
Well, and our oh wow, they're printed while you wait as well. Yeah, like our shelters here in Saskatoon, they are doing an absolutely tremendous job with the resources that they have.
Mm-hmm.
The capacity constraints are huge. If you were to call the YWCA looking for a space, likely you're going to be told there is no space.
Right.
So it's not even just the shelters themselves. It's sheer volume of individuals that are requiring access to a safe place to sleep. So it's a crazy world that we're in, and yeah, we're trying to
Yeah.
do our best as much as we can. So
Um, those are such valid and desperate points. The red tape and system rules have caused Misha and her husband issues as well. The only way they were able to pay for Christina's funeral was through kindness. Um, and like I said, Misha is going to be on my channel on Tuesday. She'll be talking a bit more about her daughter, Christina. They're actually making a movie about her
oh,
life,
wow.
disappearance, and murder.
Wow.
So,
I can't
yeah,
wait to
this
watch.
is,
I'm
I
excited to
know,
be
yeah,
part of
I'm really
your.
excited about
Yeah.
learning more about the wisdom that Misha has,
Yeah.
because she'll be able to be on a number of times to talk about similar issues to what you're discussing here.
Well, and
um
again, it's lived experience, right? She's living
Absolutely.
the experience of losing someone. And yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, she's the mom of the people
yeah,
that you're
supporting.
talking about.
Yeah.
So through the kindness of others' donations, neither of our accounts were used to us having any money, let alone that amount of money. They locked both accounts. The ID system set up took 6 months to unlock.
Mm.
Ridiculous how things hold down.
Wow.
The movie is going to be called Our Voices Cry.
Wow.
And I'm just getting teary just thinking about it. And Misha's right. Her story will save lives.
It absolutely
Absolutely.
will.
Yeah.
It absolutely will.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you could be here today. I'm glad you could hear us,
Yes.
and I hope that some of what we're doing here will help save someone. Um, and
Mhm. Now, I'm going to ask this because it is, you happen to have, Misha, you happen to have the ear of the executive director of a human trafficking organization on your, not human trafficking organization,
we're
rehabilitation
like a
organization.
restorative recovery based
Yes. Thank you.
organization.
Recovery. Yes.
Yeah.
Um, what would you like to see in an organization that Kendra would run? Um, yeah, yes, okay. Um, so, what sort of information, what sort of services, what sort of plans would you like to see in your perfect world for an organization like Hope Restored? Um, what could somebody do better than what you've had, better than what you've seen? Hope Restored may already be doing it, or they may need other suggestions. So I would love to hear your ideas as well. And like I said, Kendra's here. She's
Yeah, for
so,
sure.
yeah.
But I guess before she types, I think that something
Mm-hmm.
that I see is, not having a barrier of space for someone
Mm-hmm.
when they are exiting. That would be my goal.
Mm-hmm.
Is that every single person that needs that safe space can access it.
Yep.
We're just in Saskatoon. So if someone is from Saskatoon and they're maybe returning from another province that they've been trafficked in, they may not
Mm-hmm.
feel safe coming back here.
Mm-hmm.
So by us only having this location here, that may be a barrier to them coming into our recovery program. So I really feel the need of having, a physical space somewhere else that people can go to and that they can feel safe.
How about something like a fostering system?
Yeah, I don't
Like
know what that
where,
would look like.
yeah, like for example, if somebody didn't want to be in the city of Saskatoon, I live close to Saskatoon. I have a
Mhm.
spare bedroom here. Crystal might object to me giving away her space.
Yeah.
Um, I have a guest who comes here like almost every weekend. Um, but if somebody did have an extra space, um, something like, yeah, interesting thought. Okay, so Misha was saying she's always wanted to open a shelter. There you go. If she were to do so, it would be self stabilizing in the sense that everyone starts at the bottom of how to live. Okay. Not everyone.
30 seconds later.
Well, we are unfortunately limited by how many characters you can put into
Yes,
a
of
comment.
course.
Um, but yes, having a shelter, um, having multiple places, um, multiple locations in multiple cities, I think would be really important to be able to have that. Um, okay, here's her next comment. So not everyone was taught how to live successfully. For example, cleaning, cooking, budgeting, banking. If you were to start there at the basics, like that's something my girls talked about in high school was adulting 101.
Mhm.
And that's basically what Misha's talking about. She needs to do an adulting she needs to do an adulting 101 course for people who have been in unhoused situations, in trafficked situations, in situations where there have been so many scary, scary things. And yeah.
Well, I think that these are all things that, we do right within our program. So as I said, like the house is this individual's home, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, they're responsible to cook supper every night. They're responsible to do their own laundry and clean the house, do the yard work. And they find a lot of peace in doing a lot of these things. Um, they feel empowered that they are able to contribute to the community of the house, um, and that they're able to support the individuals that are coming in at varying places.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of have our three-phased approach where they come in that exit and stabilization, and they move on to, the deep delve of programming and those things, and then we move on to the transitional phase. So
Mm.
when you have varying points where individuals are at in their recovery, they're able to model and mentor individuals that are coming in
Mm.
maybe in their first space of those phases. So
Okay.
I,
Okay.
I think that that's such an important thing that, again, we're empowering people. We're not taking care of them. They don't need to be
Exactly.
taken care of, right?
That's
Um,
exactly right.
yeah,
So Misha continues, if they have easy access to receiving info, people in that position have been crushed to rock bottom, below rock bottom. Being told, let me help you is
yeah,
scary. What do they want from me? This is what they've been told. Like, this is
yep,
what they've been offered before. So, um, it's horrible. It's a horrible life, but it's still known and they may hate it. But what could be the next level worse than rock bottom? And that has to be a real fear for these people.
mhm,
So the trusts need to be something that they can ease into as well.
mhm.
Not if you want help, you have to take it our way, right?
Yes,
Not that
absolutely.
colonialistic type of we will help you on our terms, you
But I
know.
think, someone who's very respected in our organization, that's done a lot of work with our organization, said we need to stop oppressing people who are already oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
don't need that. They
No.
need to be empowered, and they need to be given their basic life needs and their basic human rights, in order to carve through that path of recovery. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we need to make people so they are not reliant on systems. And if they do need to access systems, that they are the right things, and the
Mm-hmm.
right social supports that they need.
Right. Absolutely. Now, in blah, 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 in going through your program, I imagine there are certain educational basics that you give somebody, like how to bank, how to apply for a loan, how to apply for your driver's license, how
Hmm.
to, like, the basics.
Yeah.
What other sorts of programs or educational features might you also provide?
So we do a lot of programming around like art therapy, music
Hmm.
therapy. Just filing taxes is a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our individuals that come into the home, they've maybe never filed a tax return before. So walking them
Right.
through the steps of what that means, and really leaning on some of our community partners and saying, when you're no longer in this space and you need help with your tax return, we have a great resource here in Saskatoon, the Friendship in and the Food Bank and Learning Center. The Food Bank and Learning Center, they offer someone who can help an individual walk through their tax return at no cost.
Mm-hmm.
So really just raising that awareness of the resources that are in the community, and helping, point them in the direction of accessing them. We
Mm-hmm.
we do a lot of work around, trauma and trauma informed counseling, and
Mm-hmm.
really just helping people work through, the wounds that they have endured over the years, and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that it's central to what their need is.
Right.
Um, it's not something that we like to do in a group setting, because obviously people are at varying stages of what they've gone through.
Yes,
Providing
absolutely.
that access to them to do those things, accessing interpersonal violence support groups. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of, as I kind of referenced before, a lot of people that have been human trafficked, have been raped, have been physically assaulted, sexually assaulted, all those things are
Mm-hmm.
encompassing. So it's not a one size fits all thing. It's really tailoring each situation, to make sure that they're accessing programming that they need. So,
Right. Misha's next comments are this: it's scary leaving most situations when you can't take care of yourself. You become a commodity rather than a human. Many can't see themselves as anything besides that.
mhm,
How to advocate for themselves.
absolutely.
Those are both really important. Now, I'm going to get back to the education portion, and
Hmm.
I'm simply going to say it. Do they know how to read? Do they need help with literacy? Do they need help with schooling and that sort of thing as well?
Yeah, so we can provide referrals to all different types of agencies. So some individuals would qualify for support, through Indigenous services. So they could go to somewhere like SIIT and access continuing education. We can point them in the direction of accessing, courses and things through SAS Polytech, and really whatever their individual goals are, we will find them the resources to see if that's something that they want to follow through with. So again, really looking at everyone's individual circumstance, partnering with people like Partners in Employment with Abilities Council. They assist with helping writing resumes and getting our individuals involved in maybe volunteering in the community to gain some work experience. So then they're able to have a reference to put down on a job application and things like that. Making them feel confident in the next steps in their recovery process are really, really important. So we can put people in contact with the Disabilities Association of Saskatchewan that can help with that literacy piece, and supporting them as they go through the journey. So
Right. Misha's final, she said fin enfin. That's it too. So advocating for themselves. Addictions don't just happen. There are many reasons for it. Some survive literally due to drugs. So coming in at the addiction side, at the addiction as a side effect of trauma, not as a judgment of being an addict, right?
Yep.
So people will have to be met where they are, I guess,
Yep.
right? It's just 100%. A whole lot of, like,
well,
you're not going to turn them away if they show up because they're high.
Yeah. Well, and understanding that, these individuals, they could be using substance misuse as a form of coping.
Absolutely.
So making sure that there's those options. If someone is now choosing, I don't want to be dependent on fentanyl and I want to get off of this terrible drug. Okay, what can we do to support you through that process? Can we get you into detox? Can we, are you wanting to go that route? Are you wanting to maybe, see a physician to get on, some sort of medication to help you wean off those substances, and just allowing them, again, that grace to make those choices and support them through that recovery piece. So
absolutely. Well, I would love to volunteer with your organization to help people read.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm an English teacher, so I mean, being able to come in and help people with their literacy and do it maybe sometimes in their own space is easier, rather than having to go out to the library and do it in public or go out to wherever. I happen to tutor a woman in our community. She's the owner of the local restaurant and she needs to learn English.
Cool.
So I'm helping her learn English, and I just come to her restaurant. We pick a table off to the back so she doesn't have to run around and miss work and all that stuff. So anyway,
cool.
Yeah,
it's really great.
Misha was personally sent away from rehab once because it hadn't been 36 hours. She kept using for almost another. Oh, sorry, her daughter was personally sent away from rehab once because it hadn't been 36 hours. She kept using for almost another year after that. Oh my goodness. Wow. So
that's not good. That's really sad. And again, I'm so sorry that's happened to you. And I hope that you can use your voice as a power to help other people that are in the same situation.
Absolutely. And we may not be in the same country, but we are of the same people.
Absolutely.
Right? We bleed red, and, we are humans. And as humans, I think it's our responsibility to take care of each other. That's why I have this channel. We are here to keep our other. Yes. I am my other's keeper.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I like to do here. You are my village, Kim. Thank you so much, Misha. Kendra, thank you so much for taking your time this evening. I really appreciate your information. I really appreciate your time.
Likewise.
And pardon?
Likewise,
Oh,
I really am blessed to be here, and I hope that, someone can take something that I say here today forward, and I hope that it will touch somebody and impact somebody, and they can say, actually, I know of someone right here
mhm.
in Saskatchewan that can help. So,
Yeah. Now, something that we weren't talking about, but would be something that might affect someone's mental health. So, a suicide prevention hotline is 988 in Canada and the US. Suicidality, I can imagine, would be a major contributor in your business right now.
mhm.
And the kids help phone, as young as 13 years old, call the kids help phone 668-6868, or just text 6868. If you do it in the middle of the night on a Monday night, you might actually hit my daughter. She's one of the volunteers there. So,
Wow.
but yeah, that's just something that knowing the number 211
Mhm.
is the social support number, I guess. It's the landing pad of all of the support organizations in 211. SK is Saskatchewan, AB is Alberta. Each province has their own. I don't know what's available in the States, but there are so many really amazing organizations. Until recently, I was unaware of this one,
Yeah.
but I'm really grateful for you to come on. Thank you so much.
Yes, you guys are so welcome.
Okay, we'll talk to you again, I'm sure.
Sounds great. Good night.
All right, good night, Kendra. All right, everybody, good night. I will talk to you all on Friday. Yes, tomorrow is Friday, which is game day. Come on over for some trivia or just to chat. I would love to be able to have you with me. I'll talk to you again. Bye bye.